Joe's lived here all his life, but he's not from around here. Street names are different, landmarks lie, and even money shows presidents he's never known. Some versions of Fort Wayne, Indiana are apocalyptical wastelands. Others harbor dark secrets. But when trouble strikes, Joe opens a trash can and tears a six-dimensional rift in reality. Inside lies a void where he glimpses the multiverse and rides unknown currents to another Fort Wayne, Indiana, hoping that this one may actually feel like home. With each crossing, his memories slip away. Only Nobuyuki, his shape-shifting Kitsune companion, remains constant, and they are hiding secrets about Joe's past that he may never remember. In a multiverse where the next trash can might lead to salvation or doom, Joe must find his way back before he forgets what home is. Middle-Aged Man in a Trash Can by William Bryan Johnson, published by Wild Rose Press, and available June 25th, 2025. Pre-orders are now available. And welcome to Tikiman and the Viking. He is Tikiman.
Oh, well, I'd be H.B. Barlow, a writer of historical crime fiction with the new series, The Wichita Chronicles, and he is the Viking.
I am William Bryan Johnson, author of Hell to Pay, The Dark Cry of Aristid, and coming soon on June 25th, Middle-Aged Man in a Trash Can.
That's exciting.
It is.
And our current guest is also got a book coming out.
We do. We have Merle Davenport with us today. He was sent to prison for teaching. Spent 25 years teaching inmates in Michigan and Oklahoma to earn their GEDs. I love that. He holds a master's in education with doctoral work focused on inmate behavior and reducing recidivism, and has served in leadership roles with multiple literacy and education organizations. He is currently the president of Tulsa Night Riders and co-writes historical romance with his wife Karen, and his latest book, Criminal Thinking, helps writers craft compelling villains through insight into the criminal mind. Welcome.
Thank you. And you're on the faculty this year at OWFI, and you've already had a great session, which Brian and I were buzzing about.
Thank you.
I mean, just the aspect of identifying what makes a character a villain, and you were, of course, based upon your background, talking about it from the villain being a criminal, and the thing that we were talking about afterwards, and I hope other people got the same thing, is these aspects make the character a villain, but they don't have to necessarily be a criminal. He writes fantasy, and all of those aspects were in there. I write historical crime fiction, and I can see those aspects in there. How long did it take to come up with this list of 10?
Actually, I've been teaching in there for 25 years, so I guess you would say it's my lifetime work.
Oh my goodness.
But through a little bit of research into some of my favorite books, like The Criminal Personality by Yokelson and Stamnow. And yes, that's a very nerdy book, and yes, I enjoy it. So, but it gives you insights into what the criminal mind looks like. So once we have this idea of what the criminal mind looks like, how do I get that to the authors who need to shape their criminals in a way that their behavior is consistent with, their belief system and all of that, and they become believable villains, they become believable criminals if necessary. And so it's kind of the opposite end of forensics, because forensics works at it from the backside, where you kind of discover the criminal through the various clues and evidence. And this is the front side, where you're working on the criminal himself and what he would leave as evidence and clues for the forensic people to find. So it's kind of the opposite.
Wow.
Would you call that almost profiling?
It's not. Well, I wrote it for authors so that they could profile their criminals or their villains. But the best part about that book is not the detailing of all of this, but it's taking that detailing and putting it into actual charts that they can use in order to actually map out their own villain and put it on a graphic chart if they want to, and this is what my villain looks like. He's
Right.
not into this, but he's really into this, and all of that
Exactly.
makes sense.
What were some of the main traits that you talked about yesterday?
One of the main traits, well, you're not a villain unless you're willing to break the law.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
the law is, you're really kind of, when I talk to my guys, I says, buying drugs is illegal. I mean, you have to break the law to do it. And they just laugh at me, like that's no big deal. So, breaking the law is, they're above that. The laws are made for little people. But being the instant gratification, we're looking for things that will gratify us or pleasure us immediately.
Mm-hmm.
We don't like the long-term stuff. And this doesn't describe white-collar crime, which is the opposite.
Right.
But regular crime, we don't want the long-term stuff like having to work for a living, or going to school and getting this piece of paper at the end, or long-term relationships. We're more interested in the chase than we are in the conquest than we are the actual relationship.
And the thing I found fascinating is you were talking about the levels of these characters and how it completely kind of changes their personalities, boosting some of that instant gratification, maybe over more of a want to lead or want to overpower other people. And we could definitely see that in some of our villains over time, to where, in fantasy, I have a guy that is a religious leader, and he's fanatical, and he is the law, and nobody goes beyond that. We've talked about some of your characters before that are more of the typical criminology type,
Right.
the ones that kind of wanted their empire, or they were kind of a spree killer,
Right.
and just the psychological differences of these characters.
Well, and what you used toward the end of the session was, you've got these 10 attributes, and it's easy for somebody to say, well, I got to get all these 10 in there, but then you showed a graph where your character or your villain may exhibit more of this and less of this, and that's what colors the character. You're not giving us a template to make cookie cutter villains. You're giving us the aspects that you can pick and choose to
Create a 3D.
right, modulate them and so forth.
Right.
There might be somebody that's not into relationships at all, doesn't care about women, doesn't care about men, doesn't care about getting into relationships, but has a definitive need for instant gratification. So that alters from, let's say, the Lothario who wants to love and leave everybody. And that was, it's a template, but they're tools. And that's what you gave us, were the tools to identify, to create the fleshed out 3D characters.
Yeah, another element of that is I find in almost every criminal is I am the center of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about me. And almost everybody you look at that's in a villain, it's all about them. They have to bend the world to their liking. It's all about them.
And do you see different levels of that in people as well?
Yeah, and see, this is where the villain starts. But the cool thing about creating a character arc within a villain is as they modify their thinking, their behavior changes. And so you can actually work on various elements of these traits and modify those traits. And now you've got a character arc for your villain. And so that makes a book that much better, because it's not just Darth Vader, the evil one. It's Darth Vader realizing that his son is really important, and he's willing to give up the dark side for his son. So that's a character arc, and you want to see that even in the villains.
Right.
But also one of the things that was striking me, that you had the chart on there, I don't remember if it was aggression or what it was, but it was also the steps of thinking emotionally. No, that was Butcher's thing. Sorry, I'm backing up on that. You were talking something about aggression and then kind of thinking about what I'm failing on that. I'm going to stop there.
Okay, so let's talk about being a bully.
Okay.
And being a bully can come out in several different directions. This may be what you're thinking of. So being a bully is, for some people, is just smashing their fist into somebody's face, and that's fun. I like to do that.
And that's their gratification.
That's their gratification. For others, it's a part of doing business. If you have a gambling debt, you owe me, then I have to smash your knees in. Because if I don't, then, Tom's not going to pay me either, because he's going to say that's, it's not going to matter. So it's a business strategy. And so in that case, it's not so much of a gratification as it is, I'm in business, I have to enforce this so that I get paid. Okay? And then you have the others that try to control their environment, not through their fists, but through their silver tongue. And so then you have your con artists. So you have various levels when it comes to that bullying, and the manipulation that can take place by the con artist, so that the old lady ends up penniless instead of because she fell in love with him and so on, and or just got all of her savings taken for some reason.
Going back to Vader, tell me about Vader kind of early in Star Wars, like Episode 4 versus Vader becoming redemptive.
So, Vader, when he came out, he was, I was a teenager when this came out. And it was awesome. It was the best thing ever,
Yeah.
And but the cool thing about him is he was the dark side personified. Everything that we knew about the dark side of the Force was embodied in Darth Vader.
Aggression,
and
hate,
we saw this, don't underestimate the power of the Force, and and the guy's choking to death. So by the time we get to the Return of the Jedi, we see a Vader that finally says to Luke, "It's too late for me, son. I am irredeemable." But in the end, we see that he is in fact redeemed, even though it's at the cost of his own life.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we see this beginning from the embodiment of what the dark side is to redemption in the end. And it's a wonderful, beautiful character arc. But it shows us that even the worst of the worst can be changed. They can, and so what you saw in there, if you were to use my theories, is that you saw his thinking changing, and his thinking changed from this is how it is to this is too late, I can't change it, to I will change it for you, son. And so you see the thinking progress just absolutely shift, and if you're sensitive to keying in on that, you go, whoa.
And it's that mindset you said, it's all about him in the beginning,
Right.
and then suddenly he's
It became
getting the
about
bigger
his son.
picture.
Right.
Yeah.
Now that's a 3-film arc, but from a personal level, do you have a problem with a book or a movie in which the villain stays villainous and is not redeemed? Do you have any issue with that on a personal level?
Actually, I do. I love Harry Potter, but Voldemort is irredeemable.
Yeah.
Completely.
Well, he's pure evil.
He's
and-
pure evil. He doesn't change. There's nothing
Yeah.
going on there. And I love the books, and because I love the characters, and she drew us into the characters, and that was phenomenal. She's a phenomenal writer. But I would love to have seen Voldemort, not necessarily the personification of evil, but with a few flaws, with a little bit of connection that maybe that scar, that connection that he had with Harry, changed him a little bit, and instead of him wanting to change Harry. And that was my only disappointment with that series. Otherwise, I was glued to those books.
I mean, even Satan in Paradise Lost is an interesting character and is not the personification of evil, but the fallen angel. And when you look upon Satan in that fashion, it's like, fallen angel, I thought it was evil. So Milton brings in a different coloration of what we would expect as an archetype. So that's it too. So when you have a character like that is not redeemable at all, it becomes an archetype as opposed to a real fleshed out character. I mean, we're talking about fantasy, and we're not talking about a real person per se, but a fleshed out character. So therefore, it's just an archetype.
Right, like Sauron in the Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And in fantasy, you can have those ultimate evil characters that's their thing.
Right.
But yeah, in other things it doesn't work as well. You can't have an ultimate evil character in real life situations.
It's perhaps then that character who is an archetype is there for the purpose of the character arc of the good character, as opposed to anything that's happening with them.
Right.
They're there to be the vessel to change the rest of the characters in the story.
And unfortunately, that creates almost a two-dimensional character.
Indeed. So that's where it was interesting. Now, you do have the book coming out, Criminal Thinking.
It's coming out in the fall. I do not have an exact date.
We don't worry about that for this time period, because we will revisit with you when you have a date.
We would love to talk to you when this is coming out.
And more about your background, and your PhDs, and also the writing with your wife, which is unbelievable, because I don't think...
I have had a love affair with my wife for so long. I turned into a sap. And when I'm not at work dealing with criminals, writing romance stories with her was an outgrowth of our relationship. And so that's kind of how that happened. And we write them together.
I'm getting all verklempt here.
How many books do you guys do?
We've got 2 with the third one in the hopper.
Okay.
And then we've got, those aren't out yet either. My publisher is just getting going on this. So I'm on the early stages of this career. But they're fun. One of the stories is actually built on the life of my great-grandfather, who married, he worked in the aviary or the blacksmith, or the raising horses, in England. And so he was a commoner, and he married a girl that we only know her name by Jane Noble, because she was disowned for being an aristocracy and marrying a commoner. And so I said, there's got to be a story there. So I wrote it.
No kidding.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Well, thank you for being with us. We will revisit with you. We're excited. We're both excited about the book coming out. And Merle's also the president of Tulsa Night Riders, so that probably is more on your plate.
Do you have a website where people can find you?
Working on it.
Okay.
Under construction.
Under construction.
Yes, it's like
being remodeled.
There we go.
We always end our podcast with the same expression, which we believe in wholeheartedly.
Read a book.
Merle Davenport, thanks for being with us today, and enjoy
pleasure.
the rest of the conference. You're all done, right?
With my presentations.
Yes.
Now I get to learn.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Thanks a lot, Merle. Appreciate it.
Appreciate talking to you.
My pleasure.
Take care.
Tikiman and the Viking podcast brought to you by Rumination of Thunder Media. The following intro and outro music was used for this media project. The music Find Them by Alexander Nakrata. Free download from filmmusic.io. License Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International.